What's going on, my babies? Welcome back to another episode of I almost said Can of Heaven, the spiritual word. And if you're new, thanks for tuning in and tapping in. If spirituality is something you're interested in, psychology is something you're interested in, science is something that you're interested in, or self-help, I recommend subbing or following whatever platform you're finding me on. And if you're a returning baby, thanks for tuning in and tapping in. I appreciate you. So today is day 2 of my 30-day challenge. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the previous episode that will tell you all about the 30-day challenge. It's very, 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 very simple. Very simple. So, with that being said, my babies, let's jump right into today's episode. And as always, before I start, I like to start these off with a disclaimer by stating that these are for entertainment purposes only, and to always do your own research, to come to your own conclusions, to make your own decisions, to have your own answers, and I believe in your ability to be your own person. So, in today's episode, I want to talk about how to learn. And this is not going to be something that's very clear and it's not very linear the way that I explain things. And the reason that it's the reason that I explain things in a not linear fashion, or like not in like a scheme of like a line, is because everything has a multitude of ways that you can look at it, and I try to cover as many different ways that you can look at it through the way that I interpret it. So I'm just going to jump right into what I'm going to be talking about today. I wanted to test out the audio. I wanted to see if it was better if I put it farther away from me, but I don't know if it helped until I watch this back and edit. So we're going to see, and hopefully it's not absolute garbage. So, jumping right into today's topic. And obviously I apologize for any noises in the background in advance, and anything of that nature. So, learning how to learn. Learning how to learn is simply you finding ways or techniques in your personality that will help you to understand something. And another thing that helps to learn things is that you don't understand most of the things that you're being taught. So, how to learn, I can't really form it in a linear way just because it's not something that's linear. So, I can't, it's like me trying to explain to you what a circle is with using lines. Like, I can say it's one continuous line that wraps back into itself, but that's not really going to give you a clear picture unless you already know what a circle is, or unless I have an example of the circle. So, using an example of how to learn, or how I taught myself how to do certain things, it's kind of like if you read a book and you read it once and you're like, I don't understand any of this. That is the perfect place to start. Why? Because you know that you're going into this not knowing a damn thing, and you go into it with the expectation that you're not going to learn it. And something that I have personally experienced that has helped me to learn things is to go into the experience with no expectation. I don't expect myself to know it by any set point in time. I don't expect myself to learn it at all. And you have to go in with this mentality of like a child. You have to just go into this playfully. And when you go into things playfully, you go into things more positive, just by nature. So, how to learn. The best thing that I can do is give you tips. Because learning how to learn, you have to understand how you yourself work in order for you to understand how other things work. And it's kind of like the whole saying, as above, so below. Like, everything is really intertwined. And it's kind of like, if I don't understand how to drive a car, and then I get into a car and my car fails me, there's no way I'm going to be able to fix the car because I don't understand how it works. But if I have an understanding and say, oh, okay, this is a motor, these are the rotors, this is the brake, this is the tire, then I have a kind of like a little tiny piece of the puzzle to say. And life is just you putting all the pieces together. Like when you go to school for being a doctor, when you're going to school, period, they put little phrases here and there. Like you go to a basic course of whatever you're trying to learn or whatever degree you're trying to get into. But before that, they have to start you with English, math, science, and whatever else. But it's because you need a basic understanding of it to move up to the next level. And that's the same thing with anything. So how do you learn how to learn? What are you trying to learn? First, figure out what you're trying to learn. Because it has a part in the ways that you're gonna jump into this thing. Like if you're trying to learn math, or if you're trying to learn history, or if you're in college and you're trying to figure out this set class, or you get a book for this class, but the class is a self-paced course and you don't have good discipline, then most likely it's going to be hard for you because you're like, well, I don't know what the fuck to do. So, how to learn, obviously, you have to go into the subject with an open mind. Whatever it is, this is going to be a very general thing because trying to learn one specific thing is going to be hard if you don't have a grasp of it. So, we're going to go into general terms. First tip, go into everything with no expectation / a playful mindset. When you're having fun, you do better, you want to be there. So just go into it, try to have fun with it, and just explore. Just kind of like get to a basic understanding. Like read something, and if you don't understand it, try to understand the basis. Like understand the gist of it. And if you don't understand the gist of it, go more general. Try to understand key points in it. Try to get to what is the main idea. What are the supporting details? Get really, really, really elementary with yourself. And basically, that's how you learn. Like, you learn from breaking things down for yourself. So if you are somebody who's like me and, like, I don't read, so when I do read, it takes me a long time to figure out what I'm reading or even just understand what's going on in what's being said in these words, because words are very hard for me. As you can tell by every single episode, me and grammar don't have a good relationship. So if I'm trying to teach myself grammar, I have to break it down for myself. And if I don't know how to break it down for myself, then I can look up videos of somebody else breaking it down for me. That's the beauty of today's world. We have so much technology. You could just go on YouTube and have somebody else explain it to you if you really don't get it that much. And if they break it down for you and you still don't get it, go to a different video. So, let's get into the basis. Go into it with a playful mindset, right? Being playful allows you more space, more wiggle room to have positive thoughts and positive feelings. Number 2, if it's really hard for you to get into this playful mindset, my second tip is to not try your best to not get frustrated when you don't learn it, or if you're not learning it as quick as everybody else, or if you're not learning it as quick as you thought you would, or if you're not learning it quick. Just try not to get frustrated, because frustration will put a barrier from that thing. Like, most people don't want to do things that frustrates them because it frustrates them, and because we don't want negativity in our lives, we want to avoid that at every cost. But if you go into this place of learning for yourself just open and free, then most likely you won't encounter these feelings of frustration. And when you do encounter these feelings of frustration, you'll be able to pull yourself out and step back and be like, wait a second, why am I getting frustrated? We're just here to have fun. Let's just have fun. This is not that serious, even though it might be serious. Like if you're in college and you're like, I need to learn this. Obviously, you need to learn it so you can pass a class, but make it seem like it's not that big a deal if you don't. Because if you make it seem that way, then you will feel that way. And when you feel that way, you act that way. And when you act that way, action comes from that. And so, if you're having trouble learning these things, be playful. And the more playful you are, the less effort you have to put into things, because things come easier to you. So, my third tip for how to learn is to understand that you don't know anything. Understand that you're going into this thing with not knowing a damn thing, and that is okay. That's the point. Most people get frustrated at their situations or circumstances or whatever they're trying to learn or whatever class they're in, because they're like, I should know this already. I should have been out of this class. I should have already known this. I should have, whatever the case is, right? I should be learning this faster than I am. Whatever the case is for you. Obviously don't know your personal situation or circumstances, but you don't know it. That's why you're there. That's why you're trying to learn this thing. So have that be okay. And recognize that when you don't know anything, you're at the most enriching state you can be at. Like, if you are not an expert at something, you can be an expert so much better than someone who's already in that field and who is not taking their craft with like, they're not taking it seriously, in the sense that, like, they don't really care about it. They're just doing this because they've learned it. Like, if I'm somebody who loves cars. When I drive a car, it's gonna feel amazing to me. And I'm gonna be an expert because I love to drive cars, not because I know about cars. I could be a technician to just be a technician, just because it makes me money. Versus if I'm actually going into this with the passion that I'm going into it with. And I sit here behind the wheel and not know a damn thing. It's kind of like, let me take that analogy back and give you a better one. It's kind of like when you were a kid, if you were somebody who wanted freedom from parents, rules, all these regulations, all these things that you're like, oh, I'm not allowed to do this, I'm not allowed to do that, I can't wait to grow up, then that is what helps you grow up. It's that drive in you that wants to do something, and if you want to do something, you will achieve that thing. So, when I say that, if you're at the starting point, you're at the best possible position because you know what you want, versus somebody who doesn't necessarily know that they want that. Like, you could be in the same class as someone else in college. You could be in the same English class, but you want to teach English. And this other person is just taking English because they need to take English, because it's a requirement to graduate. So, who do you think is going to do better? You're both at the same starting point, but you have a reason to it. Not really recognizing that you have a reason to it, but recognize that if you're starting somewhere, you want to be there. Like, it doesn't matter the subject, it doesn't matter what you're learning, it doesn't matter if you're doing it for money, whatever the case is, because you have a reason why. And your reason why is what got you to this point where you're trying to learn this thing. Like, if you're studying to be a mechanic or if you're studying to be a welder, you want to be there. You got yourself to that point where you're like, I want to be here. And that's what is frustrating for somebody who wants to be there. Like, most people don't learn because they really want to learn and it's hard to learn. Versus if you're just going in there to have fun and be like, yeah, I do want this, I do love this, and that's why I'm going to continue to push, even when it's hard. I just spit everywhere. Anyways, so to make my last tip more clear and more understanding, or like understandable, it's basically like, if you're starting, you're at a really good place because you're like a sponge and you don't know anything yet. It's kind of like if you, like how science says that kids are like sponges from like year 1 through 5, and they just absorb everything. You're that sponge in that moment because you don't know anything yet. And because you're the sponge, and you're a sponge but in an adult body, you want to already know it because it's easy to just know it. But that's just not how reality works. Unless you're a natural, right? Like, there's some people who I do believe they're natural because they go into these things with a reason why. They go into these things with playfulness and just a genuine energy. But it's not the case for every single person, and if you want to learn how to learn, you're going to have to learn how to maneuver through these things if you're trying to learn something that you don't necessarily like love, or something that you're not passionate about. Like, I hate 9 to 5s. Disgusting. Despise them. But I learned to accept it and I learned to have a reason why. Because everybody in this world has to make money. And although that's not something that I see as like a cool thing to do, like, it's not something that like I enjoy waking up in the morning, you know? Like, it's not something that I'm like, ooh, let's go to work, you know? But because I've been in like the negative mindset of like, ew, I don't want to do this. I flipped it on myself and I was like, okay, but I have to make this enjoyable or else it's never gonna be enjoyable. Or else I'm just gonna despise my life for the rest of however long I have to work. 9 to 5s. And if I'm not putting effort towards something else, then this is my life, you know? So like, I have to be accepting of it. And even if I went to college and got like a really fancy degree, or even if I went to whatever, I'd still be in the same situation. I'd still be hating my existence because I have to go to a 9 to 5. So for me, the driving force in learning is understanding that it's a good reason and that I can push myself to do this thing. So it's like self-motivation too. And so that's going to be my fourth tip. My fourth tip is to self-motivate. Have reasons why you want to do this. And when you have a reason why, it pushes you farther. And something that I've realized is that if you have, obviously everybody who's watching this has a life, but if you are alive, you need a reason to keep going, or else it feels so mundane to be here. It feels dreadful. At least to me, that's what I've experienced. Like, I love playing video games, and when I have no goal to achieve in the video game, I don't want to play. Because I'm like, this is not rewarding at all. Like, I'm not achieving anything. And I've realized that that's the same thing with my person. Like, being a human being, being this creature that sits on this floating rock, I realize that it feels really, really pointless if I'm not having a reason why. Like, that's one of the human fundamental things. Like, everybody wants purpose, everybody wants, what is it, relationships, everybody wants community, everybody wants to be loved, everybody wants to be liked, blah, blah, blah. So you have to create that for yourself, because that's what's really going to help you to learn things for yourself and to learn faster. And when you're trying to learn how to learn, you'll understand this through just meditating on, like, okay, let's meditate on why I want to learn this thing. And then you sit there and you're like, I want to learn this thing because I know that it'll be good for me in my future. And that will be the motivating factor. And then you go out and you do the thing. You're like, wow, I feel really good to do this thing, and it feels more positive and it feels more light. And when things feel light and positive, you want to do them more. And when you want to do something more, you get to a repetitive habit where you actually come to understand the thing itself. Like, I remember learning how to code when I was in high school, and I was like, damn, this shit's fucking hard. Like, this shit's disgusting. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand why there's symbols here. I don't understand why, like, there's mathematical analogies and mathematical terms, but I'm using words. And then I sat there and I was just trying to unlock something that would help me to just exist in that class, because I was like, holy fuck, this shit's hard and I feel stupid as hell. So I'd sit there and something just clicked in me from just staring at the page and trying to figure out, okay, what's going on. I had no, like, this wasn't for a class that I was trying to figure this out, right? Because obviously if you're coding, like, if you learn how to code, you can just type all the shit because it tells you to type all that shit, and somehow it'll work for you. At least for me. At least it's how I went. I went to school, got into this coding class, and this special needs kid was like blowing me out of the water, and I felt so fucking dumb because I was like, holy shit, this kid is like 30 and beating my ass. And I felt like shit because I was like, I'm barely 17 and I don't even understand what the fuck is going on. And then I stepped back and I was like, okay, what am I doing? Like, what is coding? Let me try to figure out what coding means, what the structure of this thing is, and why I'm doing this. So I sat there and I was like, okay. And I stared at one of the examples that my teacher had given me. I was like, okay. And for some reason, I'm really good at, like, replicating things. Like, I'm really good at, like, if you show me a math problem, I'll be able to replicate that on a whole different math problem and get the answer right without knowing how I did that. So I'm like, okay, let me try to understand how I'm getting this right. What is coding? I don't understand. I sat there and I stared at a simple little line, and it was like 4 and then a little symbol of, like, greater than, and then a value that is obviously inserted by the user. And I was sitting there, I was like, 4 greater. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And then I was looking at a line that was past that, and I was like, it doesn't make sense unless, like, I connect all of these things. So I was like, okay, so coding itself is like a sentence, and you're getting the story or the plot of the story to go on its own. So you have to use mathematical analogies so that it knows what to do. So it's kind of like this greater greater than sign in this mathematical equation that uses only words and no numbers is for the computer to know what to do, because the computer is smart enough to know like what's going to be the number, what the value is, because the value is going to be set by the user every time. And because that's going to be different, you have to put a formula that will equal, that will equate to having this thing know what to do. And that, to me, was like extremely complicated. I was like, what the fuck? Like, that doesn't even make any sense in my own brain. Like, how do you know what to do? How does this know what to do? How does that mean this? And so it's kind of like, one time I was just sitting in bed and I was like, oh my god, I get what math is. And it took me like 30 years. So I was like, I don't understand. But that was when it clicked for me how to learn. Nobody really learns how to learn. It's just memorization. Like when you go to school, they teach you how to memorize stuff. And if you have a photographic memory, then you do great in school. You don't even need to know what the fuck is going on. Like, take one of my siblings, for example, has photographic memory, and so she never had to try in school. She just, boop, learned everything. Straight A's for a long time until, bad kid era came and then started to fail because she didn't show up to class. So, everything is memorization. The way you learn your ABCs is through a song. Why? Because you repeat the song. You repeat the song, repeat until it sticks to you like a damn sticker. But that sticker has no value other than to say, this is an ABC. And that's how we learn. School has it, I wouldn't say that school has it like figured out, but the system does have it figured out. And when you break down the system, this is what I've learned from breaking down the system of like school and stuff. So everything that you don't know, you have to put a value holder in its place. Like if I don't know what sunglasses are, but this is holding its value, or if I don't know what blue light glasses are and this is holding its value, then I know that this is a representation of that thing. And so I don't need to know what blue light glasses are. I don't need to know what sunglasses are. All I know is that it's this. I don't have to understand this, I just know what it is. And that's the same thing for anything that you're trying to learn. You use context clues to piece it together, and slowly you get the whole picture. So it's kind of like if you're driving, you know what the steering wheel is. You know what the brakes and the gas pedals are. You know what the gear changer is. But you don't have to know how it works. You don't need to know how to actually open up the engine. You don't even need to know how the engine works. But slowly those pieces come to you from you understanding, okay, when I turn this wheel, it actually turns the wheels on the ground. That's why it's called the steering wheel, because I'm steering the wheels, and then it clicks for you, right? That little piece of it clicks for you. You're like, oh, that's so mundane, but like, I get it now. And then you move further, and you're like, okay, when I shift the gear position, it's changing the gears in the car so that it knows what direction to go. When I put it in reverse, when I shift the gear to reverse, it goes backwards because it's telling the car what to do. And you're like, oh, okay, that piece clicks. And then slowly you build on that. But the only ways that you're going to get yourself to want to understand those things is if you're having fun with it. Or if you're kind of just like playing around with it. Like most people who are into cars because they just have fun with it. Like they're like, oh, this is fucking, like, this is cool. This is a piece of machinery that I just get into the car and it goes. Like, that's mind blowing to them. So then they're like, oh, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm going to have fun with this. And I'm going to build my dream car. Like, half of my friends are car fanatics. So, obviously, everything comes down to your interest, your personality, which is why I talk about having a motivation and having self-motivation. So, just to wrap up today's episode, just because I feel like this is a little bit longer and I don't want these to go over 25 minutes, this is like very close. It probably is going to go over, but anyways, point of this, if you want to learn how to learn, take context clues and just piece it together slowly, piece by piece. And have a reason why you do things, just because it makes it more positive for you. Like if you're doing things because you think they're cool, you're going to want to do it more. If you're doing things because it's helpful towards you, you're going to want to do it more. If you're doing things because it's helpful towards the world, you're going to want to do it more than if you're just like, I don't know, it just seems like something to do. You're just going to burn yourself out. and take this from me, because like I love to burn myself out with doing absolutely random BS. Like it's not even important. I'm just like, ooh, going into things willy-nilly. But you learn as you grow. So anyways, I hope that this was helpful in any way, shape, and form. And as always, take what I say with a grain of salt, because I'm not your life, I'm not your shoes, I am not you. So always take everything that I say with a grain of salt. And as always, before I end this, my schedule is always changing, but bear with me. Life is always happening. So right now I'm uploading Monday through Friday, and the last week of every month I don't upload because that's my mental recharge week, where I'm like, I just need a vacation, and that's my vacation time. So yeah, I hope that this was something that was helpful towards you. And if you're interested in spirituality, psychology, science, self-help, any of that type of stuff, I recommend subbing or following. And I'll see you in the next ones. Peace.